Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh my gosh, it feels so good to be on here, to be connecting with each of you. Say hello when you're jumping on. Drop a hashtag replay if you're watching this replay. I am so grateful to be back here connecting with you guys. I've got my tea this morning, and I am hoping you're in for a beautiful little story time with Teal. Grab your tea, grab your wine, and let's chat, because I have so much that I am going through right now that I'm so excited to share with each of you. And I really almost want to use this live stream today just more as an opportunity for me to get to continue to process everything that I'm experiencing on my own spiritual growth journey as a way to help inspire and lead the path forward for each of you as well. Because I know so much of this journey that we're on in deepening into love and deeper relationships always comes back down to how we build that relationship with ourself, right? And the ways that we choose to really connect and go deeper and deeper and deeper into our own spiritual journey. And so, I was using the podcast for a long time as kind of like that channel and that opportunity for me to just have a space to speak into existence everything that's coming through for me right now. And I want to now transition the podcast over to more of our live streaming here so that I can be able to continue to just share real time in video form what I'm going through and what I'm experiencing. The last 2 weeks have been some of the most challenging days and some of the most expanding, soul liberating days I think of my entire life. I've been battling a pretty intense cold that I'm calling the Ascension flu. It's actually one of my mentors was telling me, she was like, oh yeah, you got the Ascension flu. I was like, there's a term for that? Apparently, ladies, there is a thing called the Ascension flu. And I'm talking ASCENC, ascend, like Ascension flu. And I'm still battling it a little bit, but intensive days in bed resting, splitting migraines, crazy, just like feeling so stuffed up, all the things, right? Not COVID. Believe me, I watched, it was not COVID. But it was something that I could recognize and realize that within myself, I was fighting it, right? I was fighting my own growth, and I was fighting my own wanting to deepen into myself. And I'm going to share this whole story of what I've been going through because I think it can relate a lot to no matter where you are in your journey of ascension and spiritual growth. We all tend to go through these kind of like, roller coasters on our journey, right? Of the ups and the downs, the contractions and the expansions. And so I was just going through my own version of this contraction and expansion phase. And there are times when you really, really fight the contraction, right? And just like when you're giving birth or when you're going through another spiritual rebirth, you fight the contractions. You don't want to be going into the pain, into the darkness, into the uncomfortable, into the uncertainty. But I knew that there was something really great waiting for me on the other side of it. And unfortunately, my mind was really, like the last grips of my mind were really trying to hold on tight and say, we're not going down there, right? So even from bed, as I'm feeling stuffed up and have a splitting migraine, my brain's like, what else can we do to stay productive and not just sit in silence? So I'm like booking caterers for the wedding and trying to feel productive. And finally, after like a week and a half of it, I had to just give myself a break and really let go and give myself some time to just be and sit in the nothingness. And that was a lot of last week, was just sitting in the nothingness of just being and allowing myself to surrender into my body even more, into the depths. And I mean, I've been doing spiritual development work for over 15 years, so none of this is new to me. But still, it can be really challenging to deepen into that place within yourself of just going, okay, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. And really what we're doing when we're surrendering is that we're deepening into the body. And when we're deepening into the body, we're deepening into our embodiment of what's coming next. And when I think about what this really was, is that, so much of the journey of spiritual work is to get out of the mind, right? And into the embodiment of the spirit, to transcend the mind. But we can't transcend the mind if we are trapped, staying stuck in the mind, right? And so to be able to get out of the mind, we literally need to get into the body, or get out of the mind and into the body. And so embodying that spiritual growth needed to come from dropping out of the mind and into the body. And I think that's why the sickness came, was the sickness was saying, okay, it's time to just pull ourselves out of the mind and get down into the body where we can really feel and allow ourselves to move through this, right? So I'm sitting there in bed and I'm just surrendering and surrendering and surrendering. And that's where you have to start to let go of the final things that are still trying to hold on in that place of constriction, right? That's not wanting you to surrender. And those things were coming to the surface. And it's so beautiful when you really just hold the space, right, for these things to come up. They no longer are lodged into the psyches of our being. They come up and they are there to be cleared and cleansed and released from the mind, from the spirit, from the psyche, wherever it is not serving us, and allow ourselves to lean into that discomfort. And this is the work that I hold space for with clients, which I just absolutely love doing, is holding the space for women to actually lean into that discomfort, lean into those fears, lean into the areas of themselves that have never really been fully addressed or looked at, so that they can be released. But to do this for myself was an entirely different kind of experience, right? Because I don't have anyone reassuring me and saying, it's going to be okay, you're going to be fine. It was me holding this in myself, saying, I witness and welcome all of my deepest fears, all of my deepest limiting factors and beliefs and narratives to come forth so that they can be released. And in the process of this, I was really able to transcend and transpire out these deep fears that had been still holding me in my limitation. And long story short, by the end of the week, I had such deep awakenings and such deep downloads from spirit of who I really am and the essence of where my spirit came from as a lineage of high priestesses. And I'm not going to go into too much depth with it right now, but just anchoring into peace so many realizations and re-remembrances of who I was and who I have been in my past lives and who I am to be here for today and for the world. And from that place was just this like blast of power. Like I'm talking literally like light just blasting everything that had ever kept me tiny locked in those little limitations of the mind, completely blasted out. And I re-remembered like who and how and all of what it is to connected together for this universe, and to come into that place within myself was such a zoom out, right? Such an expansion, such a breaking through of the mind in a way that I've never seen or experienced before. And I realized how much the mind puts us in these tight little boxes, in these areas and these entrapments of limitations, right? How many times is it that we try to lean into a desire or lean into something that we really want only to be held back by the fears and the stories and the limiting thoughts telling us that we don't deserve it, or we're not good enough, or we're not worthy, or we're not whatever, right? Keeping us in this cage of confine of what feels like our comfort zone, right? And drop me a 1 if this is resonating or hitting home for you as well. If you've had this or you've noticed this, if your mind just truly trying to take control and not letting you even move into that place of spirit. This is the first level of this growth expansion journey, is starting to transcend the mind and take away all of the power that the mind holds over our spirit. Because when we hold ourselves in the power of the place of the mind, we are only getting to live a fraction of the infinite possibilities that our life has waiting for us in store. But once we start to step outside of the mind, like literally I could envision and imagine myself seeing this vast expansiveness that is me, right? This vast expansiveness that is all of us, that we all have capability and potential to own and play in and be in. And yet we put ourselves into this tiny, tiny little construct of a cage that the mind holds us to. And it doesn't matter where these thoughts came from or where these confines came from or what we were born into or what we were raised with. All of it doesn't matter. It's up to us to transcend that tiny little cage of the mind. And as soon as we start to transcend that, we get to step into the infinite possibility that is waiting for us on the other side. But that is the scariest part, right? Is actually cracking open those walls, releasing the walls, knowing that we hold all the power within ourselves, all the safety we've ever looked for, all the security we've ever looked for, all the love that we've ever looked for on the external world, that the mind has been trying to tell us is only available to us because it is on the external. We release all of that and we realize that we have all of the power within us. Then we don't need anything from the mind. And when we don't need anything from the mind, that's when the mind has to die. That's when the ego has to die. That's when we truly release its grips and its attachments to us, and we come back to who we really are. And when we come back to who we truly are, and we step into that power and that presence and that place, that is when we are truly tapped into the infinite potentiality of our reality. And so that's what I've been playing in the last week. And it's just been like, holy moly, holy moly. I've been seeing synchronicities all over. I've been feeling the presence of my angels. I was giving myself literally even my own little baptism in the bathtub of just initiating myself into re-remembering who I really am, right? When we come onto this earth, this is my belief of this, is that we are really stripped and we are put into a temporary amnesia of the mind, where the mind does not remember who we truly are or where we came from and who our souls really are, and that we actually are on this journey to re-remember everything of who we really are. And then the second part of the journey is actually the fun and the joy and the excitement and the juiciness of co-creating a life from this place of re-remembrance of our power, of knowing just how incredibly radiant and loved and secure and supported we are. And everything from this last week have just been confirmations that everything that I have clicked into is my truth. And it's interesting because the second part of this has been how I really get to now hold space, not only to make space for so many more women to come into my containers, to be able to hold space for them to go through these transformational experiences, but also to be able to hold that space for my man and to be able to really connect into the next level of radiance of my divine light so that he can hold and connect into that divine light within himself. And I've been watching him just deepen so much alongside of me into the divine masculine that he gets to step into to match my new divine feminine frequency. And this is really what I talk about in this idea of evolved and spiritual partnership, is that we are consistently growing alongside of our partners in this beautiful like DNA double helix spiral that goes up and up and up into the ethers, and we get to really be able to be that harmonistic partner for our partner, right? And so in all essence, we are just deepening our growth. We are just continuing to strengthen and expand out the power of who we are. And in the process, we get to actually now connect into and support the growth and development of our partner in that process. And this weekend was just such a beautiful attribute to that. We celebrated our 8-year anniversary, and I am just so excited about that. The fact that we have known each other for so long. We are getting married in 6 months. I've been planning the wedding. It's been just so much fun. And this weekend we just took a little getaway to the Olympic National Park up in northern Washington, in a beautiful, beautiful national park with just evergreen redwood trees and ferns and mosses and rivers and waterfalls and like lakes and like just so infinitely gorgeous up there. And it's about a 6-hour drive. And so on the drive, we just really got a lot of beautiful time to connect and to really have that time to just talk and share about our own experiences, right? And reflect on our relationship and deepen into who we are together. And I was just recognizing and noticing that as I continue to deepen into my own divine feminine, and as I continue to really show up in not only a queen essence, not only a goddess essence, but now a high priestess essence. It's just opening up so much for him to step into being just his king, his priest essence. And what I mean by that is that for me, this priestess essence is this level of strength that I hold inside of myself, where I no longer feel attached to fears. I really truly feel that fear in its rawest form, any fear that you could throw at me, I can see it, I can detach from the energy from it, and I can let it go and not let it affect me. And I was noticing myself even getting tested by that from him, where he would be sharing fears with me, share fears of us, right? And I would be able to just transmute it in that moment of conversation. And no matter what it was that he brought forward in terms of a fear that he was experiencing or fear that he was bringing onto us or projecting onto us, it was just like blasting it with light. And in those moments, I get to hold that strength for our relationship. I get to hold that power and that presence and that security for our relationship that then allows him the space to be able to step up for himself and get to learn and get to be inspired, right, by the presence that I'm bringing into the relationship. And it was so incredible to watch, just even through the conversation, just everything being transmuted in terms of no longer playing at this lower frequency. Even though that lower frequency was a wonderful frequency for a long time, it's just we keep getting to grow. And that's why I wanted to post too, this post this morning about, relationships not ever needing to be hard and not ever having the passion die, because it really doesn't have to die. It really doesn't have to die. It doesn't matter what happens. We have gone through our fair share of very challenging situations in the last 8 years. And I can truly say that it's because we've had so much time to experience each other, right? It has not been all rainbows and butterflies for 8 years. I will tell you that. And there have been real hardships that we've had to navigate together. But despite all of that, we are more in love and we are more in sync and we are more in each other's truth and in each other's light. And we are able to really hold that vision for each other to help each other continue to spiral up. And that's why it never dies. That's why the passion is able to continue to grow and grow and grow year after year, because we are not the same people year after year after year. We are continuing to grow every single day, every single year. And so it's like we are continuing to learn and meet new versions of each other every step of the way. And not only that, it becomes so much more than just like, okay, I'm meeting a new version of you. It's like, I'm meeting a new version of you, but I already still love all the old versions of you. So now I just get to love another version of you, an even deeper version of you. And that's when it just becomes so incredibly grounded, right? And so incredibly strong and so incredibly secure, because we are no longer holding on to all of the power of the past self. We are continuing to release the parts of ourselves that are no longer serving us, and we're continuing to open up and share and be vulnerable and be strong for each other so that we can keep growing together. And that's what it really looks like to have that third sphere of partnership too, because it's no longer about you completing me and us becoming one and us becoming a partner that can hold on and become one whole. It's the fact that we are each our own whole spheres, right? And if you really want to go deep, we are already one, right? But we are our own whole spheres, and we get to come together and live side by side and co-create side by side that creates something even bigger than us. And that's what I really want to teach to all of you, my loves. I want to show you, I want to enlighten you, I want to inspire you that relationships do not have to be this tiny little box. They do not have to be the limitations of the mind. They do not have to be the limitations of society, of conditioning, of what we think relationships need to be. We get to create whatever we want in our relationships, and we get to have incredibly expanding partnerships with someone that can be our best friend, our lover, our supporter, right? Everything. And that it doesn't have to be just one thing. And maybe, there are parts of you that are noticing and hearing your own mind come through saying, well, that all sounds great for you, Teal. I'm glad you found it, but that's not going to happen for me. Check yourself on that. Check yourself on those thoughts, right? Where is that coming from? Is that its own limitation in the mind? Why is your mind limiting you from allowing you to have the kind of relationship that I'm talking about? I really, really want to ask you that, because there are so many coaches out there, there are so many people preaching out what relationships should be and need to be and how you need to be. And I just want to say, just don't even listen to all that, right? Just allow yourself to really ask yourself, what do I really want from a relationship? What do I really want from a connection with a partner, right? And if that doesn't look like what you see out there, let that be okay. Let that be what it is, but know that that's not all that there is. That is only the tiny limitation of the mind. Imagine yourself swimming in a big, big pool, right? And for most of your life, you realize that you had been just putting one little baby toe into the swimming pool, right? That's where you've been hanging out, in the little tiny kiddie pool. Let's say, you've been putting one little toe in a tiny kiddie pool off to the side. It's only 1 foot deep. That's the whole pool you've been swimming in your entire life, and you think that's the only way I know a pool to be, right? I've been swimming in it. I've been swimming in it with my little toe, and that's what relationships are, and that's what relationships get to be, and that's what self-love is, and that's what all of that is, right? And I'm here to say there is a whole nother pool with a deep end and a diving board and every floaty tool that you could ever want to play with, right? Over here on this pool. And this pool, it involves you deepening into realizing that it's not about the kiddie pool anymore, right? There is so much expansiveness. There's so much vastness waiting for you, waiting for your relationships, waiting for your connection within yourself. And it starts with choosing that you want to go there, that you don't want to swim in the kiddie pool anymore, right? Comment below if you're feeling this. I don't want to swim in the kiddie pool anymore, right? I don't want to live a life of limitations anymore. I don't want to live in the confines of the mind anymore. And if you're not sure if you're living in the confines of the mind right now, what I want you to check in on is, how many times a day do I allow myself to listen to fear, right? How many times a day do I notice my heart go, how many times a day do I feel myself say no when my heart is saying yes? And checking in with yourself on that level of, how am I allowing myself to live a constricted life? And lots of times our bodies are an indicator of that. They are this place of recognizing, wait, something doesn't feel right in my heart and my soul, and my body is going to close up because my mind won't release, right? Because when the mind gets connected into a thought that feels constricting, it latches onto it, it evokes a feeling, and the feeling then just floods your body, right? And it floods your body with this feeling of tightness, and somewhere in your body, either your chest or your throat or sometimes your head or your stomach will just feel really tight, or it'll get butterflies, or it'll feel really anxious, right? This is your first indicator that it's time to lean into that fear. It's time to lean into that restriction of the mind. And when we do that, we let the heart breathe again. We let the soul breathe again. But if we don't, we actually constrict the ability for the heart to breathe and for the soul to feel expanded. And in that moment, we walk away from the big diving kids pool and we move back to the kiddie pool of the limitations of the mind, right? The one where all the kids are like peeing in it and it's like warm. Oh, gross. We're not swimming in that pool anymore, ladies. If you're in this community, it's because you want to grow and you want to expand and you want to have that freaking amazing relationship that I'm talking about. The kind where your man is so enraptured by you, not just the physical beauty, but the all of you, the essence of you, the part where I can talk to Spence about my crazy spiritual downloads and he says, wow, that sounds amazing. I'm excited for you. Yeah. Like, what do your angels have to say? Tell me more. And actually support you in that journey, right? Embracing all the woo that is you, all of the weirdness, all the quirkiness that is you. That is all available to you. That kind of relationship is available to you, but you have to let go of what the mind is telling you is possible. And that's why I'm here to tell you that everything that you maybe never even allowed yourself to dream to think is possible. It's just going to take some time to nurture in here, right? To nurture in here and to get your spirit, to get your mind caught up with the spirit and all that the spirit has to share. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. I'm just wanting to breathe some light into each of you today, breathe some inspiration into each of you today, really connect with each of you today, and let you know that this is my soul's work, and I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to be here. And every day I deepen into this power, I deepen into this presence, I help women to recognize within themselves that this is it, this is everything, right? I was even asking my partner, who has a very rational mind and who was for a long time struggling to go on his own spiritual journey because his mind was just so determined to tell me that there was nothing that evolved and nothing that existed outside of this everyday moment here. And he is now saying that spiritual growth is his number one priority, and it's the only thing that matters in his life as well, because he recognizes the power and the expansiveness of this. And that was just such a statement to me too, to recognize how far he's come in this growth journey as well. That even those with a very overactive mind can get through that and can recognize that there is so much more waiting for us when we choose to let go, and when we choose to really come home. So that's my invitation to each of you, my dears. And if you're feeling called to reach out and to come home, reach out to me and we can talk about what that looks like. So sending you so much love, and more to come soon. Mwah.